After the Carolina Hurricanes clinch their spot for the playoffs, all eyes are now set on that second seed in the Eastern Conference. And with the back-to-back against Detroit and Boston, the quest for the two spot starts now.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also do some AHL coverage over at the Calder Times, even doing some baseball at Covering the Corner for SB Nation. I'm also the co-host of the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Friday show for you guys as we get to preview the Detroit Red Wings and Boston Bruins game, as the Hurricanes are on a back-to-back on Friday and Saturday. Don't usually do two previews in the same episode, but since it's a back-to-back, I thought, why not have both of those games, do a preview for you guys, for everyone, because with the fact that we're now in a battle for a 2 seed for the Carolina Hurricanes, why not see who is on the path for the Canes as they look to get to that 2 spot? And then we're going to rewind back to Wednesday night and hear from Jackson Blake in his postgame following the Canes win, because for me, it's always good to hear what other guys are saying too, not just one guy, but if they got multiple guys that you're kind of want to hear from, especially after a playoff clinching win, why not hear from Jackson Blake as well? But before we jump into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, for the Canes, like I said, they start their quest for the 2 seed on Friday night against the Detroit Red Wings, in Carolina right now still has to fight off the Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay, and also the Florida Panthers. And real quick on where we stand and all that for the conference, the Hurricanes are at 96 points. They are tied with Toronto. Toronto's also clinched on the same night as the Canes did, but the Hurricanes do have a game in hand. So points percentage-wise, they are better than Toronto. Carolina 46-24-4, and the Toronto Maple Leafs 46-25-4, and both teams are on a 3-game winning streak. And the thing is, too, the Hurricanes have 2 more home games in the month of April, and Toronto is one of them, so that's going to be a very big night. Tampa Bay at 93 points with 75 games played, and the Florida Panthers at 92 points with 75 games played as well. So the Hurricanes have a game in hand on the 3 other teams that they're fighting for with the second seed. So right now, the driver's seat is in the hands of the Hurricanes. Now, with that being said, they played the Detroit Red Wings on Friday night in Detroit. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern puck drop. The game will be on FanDuel Sports South. And like I said, Carolina, 46-24-4. They take on the 34-33-7 Detroit Red Wings. The Hurricanes have already beaten the Red Wings twice this year, 2-1 back on March 4th. Could have been a lot bigger, but we all know Alex Lyon kind of held it down for Detroit that night. But then back at Nova Center on March 14th, before they did that, before they went out, to Philadelphia, then the West Coast, they beat Detroit 4-2, and that was in the middle of their 8-game winning streak. So this is the last game between the two teams. Now, over the last 5 games, who has been doing what for both sides? Well, Seth Jarvis, 5 assists in his last 5 games, but he also has 8 points leading the way because, come on, it's Seth Jarvis. He just notched his 30th goal, 30th assist in his 60th point in their win against the Washington Capitals. And Taylor Hall has been on an absolute run for the Canes lately with 5 goals. Now, on the flip side, Vladimir Tarasenko with 3 assists and 4 points, and then Lucas Raymond with 2 goals. Now, what's the tale of the tape saying between the two sides in their last 10 games? Well, The Detroit Red Wings are 4-5-1. They just lost to St. Louis in overtime. Did beat Boston, but then have, in a span of 5 games, lost 4 with Washington, Vegas, Colorado, and Ottawa, but they did beat the Utah Hockey Club. So they're playing sub 500 hockey, really putting themselves in a tough spot when it comes to the wild card race. Most likely, they might have a hard time making the wild card spot as of right now, with Montreal still winning, Columbus still there, even though they just lost to Colorado on Thursday night. So for Detroit, they're in dire situations of maybe even getting a wild card. But for the Hurricanes, I mean, doing really great as of late, 8-2-0 in their last 10. They're on a 3-game winning streak, beating Montreal, the New York Islanders, and now recently the Washington Capitals to clinch their playoff spot. Did lose against Nashville and the LA Kings, kind of at the tail end of the West Coast trip and getting back home. But the Nashville game, you're talking like 3 games in 4 days with travel. So that was going to be kind of tough against Nashville. But other than that, though, they did beat Tampa, Detroit, Philadelphia, and San Jose for that part of that 8-game winning streak. Did beat Anaheim to finish up the trip. That, of course, we all know now they're on their current 3-game winning streak. Now, in terms of the goaltending situation, the Red Wings could potentially get Cam Talbot 18-17-4 with a .292 and a .903 save percentage, or we could be looking at Peter Mrazek, who was the goalie that helped the Canes get into the playoffs, for which is now their current 7-year run of making the postseason. He's 12-21-2 with a .335 and an .891 save percentage. Now for the Hurricanes, we all know Freddie played against Washington on Wednesday night, so we're going to be seeing Pierre Kachekov in goal against the Detroit Red Wings, 26-13-3, a 2.54 goals against, a .901 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. He's only 4 more wins away from getting 30 on the season. With 8 games left, he's going to have to win all 4 of his next starts, including tonight against Detroit, to get his 30. I think he can definitely do it. I know he's been a little shaky lately. I think that LA Kings game has definitely kind of rattled him a little bit, because I don't think he's used to having that many goals piled up on him. I think it was just a bad combination of, the Kings at the time were really good. The defense was losing a lot of 50-50 battles. Pucks going off the post, off his skates. It was just a game that was just not going the Hurricanes' way. Piotr has gotten some wins, but has given up a little bit of goals that he should have had, but he's gotten wins. It's just you're hopefully thinking that this is a game where kind of like everything like clicks back into place, and he can be that guy who's been playing really well. So he's still on pace for his 30 wins for the Hurricanes. It's just now with 8 games left, he's going to have to win his next 4 starts to get 30. But even if he doesn't, still beating his previous wins total from last year already this year. If he gets like 28 or 29 wins, that's still pretty impressive for Pierre Kachekov. And that's with him missing games too this year. So it definitely should be an interesting goalie matchup. I would definitely say it's probably going to be Piotr against either Talbot or Mrazek. So either way, it's going to be a really good battle in the goalie matchup. Now, who are the players to watch in this game? Well, for the Detroit Red Wings, it goes without saying, Lucas Raymond, 73 points in 74 games. He is almost a point per game guy. 26 goals, 47 assists. He is a -12, though, which, pretty much almost everyone on Detroit at this point is a minus player outside of maybe Kopp, who's a +4. And that's pretty much it, unless you want to look at the defense, where Evanston is a +8. But other than that, the Red Wings are a very minus-heavy team. Obviously, you can't overlook the captain, Dylan Larkin, 62 points in 74 games, averaging over 20 minutes, 221 shots. Larkin is not afraid to put the puck on the net. And then, obviously, Patrick Kane is Patrick Kane. With 52 points in 64 games, you can never overlook, the guy who's won multiple Stanley Cups for the Detroit Red Wings. But I'd say if you want to look on the defensive side to watch out for, Rate Sider, 40 points, 74 games, does carry a -10 though, but 148 shots, 169 blocks, and 195 hits, averaging over 25 minutes a night. So basically a one-man wrecking crew for the Detroit Red Wings. Now, for the Carolina Hurricanes, who are we watching for? Well, Sebastian Aho, 70 points in 73 games, 28 goals, 42 assists. Right now, we're basically watching for Sebastian to get his 30-goal season as well, only 2 away, averaging over 20 minutes of ice time, 189 shots. Now it's just, we're waiting for him to hit 30. And then Seth Jarvis, we already know he's 30 and 60, 67 games plus 11, almost 19 and a half minutes a night, 181 shots. Basically, we're just watching to see if he's going to be able to catch his 67-point total from last year. With 8 games left, even if he gets a point a night, it's still very possible that he could get the 67 to tie. If he has a multi-point game, then he has a really good chance of that. So right now, for Aho, it's just the 30-goal season mark we're waiting to see. And for Seth Jarvis, with 8 games left, he needs 7 to tie, 8 to beat his point total from last year. So now we are in points career high watch for him as well. And then Taylor Hall, 39 points in 70 games, 17 goals, 22 assists, 130 shots, over 15 minutes of ice time. Right now, we're waiting for Taylor Hall to get 20 points, and then now obviously, or 20 goals, and him to get 40 points, because he's been on an absolute run for the Hurricanes as of late. This is a guy I want to see his run keep going for them as the season goes along. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of the Hurricanes and the Red Wings, but the Hurricanes do play on Saturday night as well in Boston to finish up this little small back-to-back before they head to Buffalo next week to continue their 4-game road trip. So what does that look like for the Hurricanes when they go up to Boston? Stick around as we'll talk about that here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament or the Carolina Hurricanes clinching playoff spots, squeezing in a round of golf at work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Well, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery store or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, they play the Detroit Red Wings tonight on Friday, but they also play the Boston Bruins tomorrow on Saturday in Boston, which will be their last matchup between two sides. And the Hurricanes, just like against Detroit, they've also beaten the Boston Bruins twice. Back on Halloween, beating them 8-2, and then back on March 6th in Carolina, beat them 3-2. So both games were in Carolina, but this is the last matchup, and it's going to be in Boston on April 5th. Another 7 p.m. puck drop in, of course, FanDuel Sports South. The Bruins at the time are 37-9, and we all know they are definitely not going to make the playoffs after a very weird down year for those guys, and also fire selling at the deadline. So there you go. We all know what the Hurricanes are at in terms of their last 5 games for their players, but for the Boston Bruins, David Pastrnak, 3 goals in their last 5 games. With Morgan Geekie absolutely on a tear for them as well. 4 assists and 7 points, leading the way for the Boston Bruins in the last 5. Who would have thought that, Out Pizza in the Hut will put Geekie in a good spot for the Bruins? So definitely someone to keep an eye on. Now, in their last 10 games, they are 0-9-1 with a overtime loss to the Buffalo Sabres. They are on a winless run right now, and depending on how Friday looks for them, they could be looking at a Hurricanes team coming in just playing Detroit and now they're playing Boston on the second half of a back-to-back, and right now they are on a stone cold run. So definitely something to keep an eye on for that. So we all know Peter's going to be playing on Friday against Detroit, which means get ready for Freddie Anderson on Saturday night. 13-5-0, and he is on a 7-game winning streak, the longest active winning streak for all netminders this season. He also has a 195 goals against, a 920 save percentage, and a shutout. In terms of the Boston Bruins, it's a toss-up of who they're going to go with in net at this point because right now, Giannis Carpusel, 10-9-3, but he carries a 298 goals against, an 893 save percentage, and 3 shutouts, which is kind of surprising that these guys have 7 shutouts on the season when you really look at their record, and it's kind of like, where does the math add up on that? But it is what it is. Jeremy Swayman, 20-28-6, a 312 goals against, an 892 save percentage, and 4 shutouts. Now, is it all on Swayman? Is it all on Corpusalo? I would probably say no, just because of the fact that you look at the team construction. You can just tell Boston tried, but didn't seem like they really had the roster this year. It seemed like everything was kind of the wheel started falling off, and they never really caught a groove. Could you put a little bit on them? Yeah, I could definitely say you could put a little bit on the goaltending because you need saves. And right now, a lot of people are throwing out that possibility of like, did Boston trade the wrong guy? I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that they did or how that was playing out, but definitely a rough year when you look at Jeremy Swayman, who's got the number 1 spot in the net, and you got Corpusalo coming in, but with the team in front of him who's basically aging and kind of lost a step. It's definitely been a tough year for Swayman and in the Boston Bruins. But hey, all things must come to an end. Just Boston's came at a very surprising rate after what they've done over the last few years. So who should the Hurricanes be watching out for in this game against the Boston Bruins? Well, obviously, David Pastrnak goes without saying, 89 points in 76 games, 37 goals, 52 assists. He's averaging over 20 minutes of hockey a night, carries a -12, though, so that really says something when you have 89 points, but you carry a -12. And he has been shooting the absolute lights out for the Bruins. How about 304 shots, which is absolutely insane? I think the next best in terms of the entire Bruins lineup is Morgan Geekie at 135 and Elias Lindholm, 2 former Hurricanes. They are the next closest, and they're not even near 150, and Pasternak's already over 300. That's saying a lot for sure, especially when Pastrnak carries 89 points, and the next best points-wise on the entire Boston Bruins team is 45, and that's Pavel Zacha and Geekie. So, like, if you're looking at another guy to watch out for, obviously it's Geekie for the Bruins. 45 points in 71 games, 27 goals. He's basically on a run to get 30 goals this season. And hey, congrats to Morgan for having a great season. It'd been great if the Hurricanes brought him back, but hey, you know what? You got to appreciate former Canes who everyone really wanted to keep. Unfortunately, lost him in the expansion draft to the Kraken, but hey, he's doing pretty well for himself. 135 shots, 100 hits, and almost 17 minutes of ice time. Of course, we're talking about Elias Lindholm a little bit, but if you look towards the defense of who we should look out for on that side of things, I would say probably their best defenseman right now is Nikita Zadorov. He is a +15, only has 17 points. He does carry 137 PIMs this season, averaging over 20.5 minutes of ice time, 102 shots, 100 blocks, and 195 hits. Basically, definitely a guy that you need to keep an eye out for because he's not afraid to throw the big hits and not afraid to take penalties. So if they get on him to take multiple penalties, the Hurricanes will be in a good spot. You could look at other guys on the defense, but you have Mason Lohrei as a -38 on the season. Not really someone to keep an eye on outside of 31 points. When you carry an almost -40 on the defense, which is the absolute worst out of the rest of the team, who the next worst minus-wise is 12. Yeah, Mason Lohrei has been having a rough season for the Boston Bruins. So it definitely should be interesting on Saturday night between the two sides of, Boston's currently on a super huge skid, have not won in their last 10. They're going to be waiting at home for the Hurricanes, most likely. Carolina's coming in on a second half of a back-to-back after just playing Detroit the night before. So in their quest for a 2 seed, you're facing two teams you've already beaten twice. Detroit's fighting for a wild card spot right now. Boston's definitely not going to make the wild card at this point since they're 7 games under 500. 8 games ago, I just don't see them really doing it. So, I mean, they're not really must-wins since you're already in the playoffs, but these are also not – you can't really lose these games since you've already beat them twice, and now you're fighting for the second seed in the East. And, of course, you don't ever want to overlook these two teams because, original 6 teams – pride still on the line. They still have a lot to fight for, even if they're still either not making the playoffs or trying to get into the playoffs. Don't really want to overlook them, so it should definitely be interesting on Friday and Saturday night against the Red Wings and against the Bruins. So hopefully we see 2 wins on the hop to start this 4-game road trip. Now, we heard from Seth Jarvis on Wednesday night. Obviously, another great interview once again from him. He's been on absolute fire lately with all these post-game press conferences. But what did Jackson Blake say following the Hurricanes' win on Wednesday against the Washington Capitals to clinch a playoff spot? Well, stick around and we'll listen to that here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel's giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. So visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, we heard from Seth Jarvis on Wednesday night. Well, let's now hear from Jackson Blake and get his thoughts following the Canes' 5-1 win against the Washington Capitals to clinch their 7th straight playoff appearance. So without further ado, let's jump into that with Blaker right now.
Who ended up sticking up for themselves, and that's really cool to watch, and it kind of motivates, especially for me, a young guy, to see that stuff and see these guys, how much they care for this team. So, yeah, definitely. I don't know if I've played in a game like that before, but it was cool to see what we did and how we stood up for ourselves.
You personally, maybe snake bitten for a long time. You've got a few to show for it now, including taking the puck to the net hard on the backhand. That's got to be, for a rookie, that's not something you expect to see every day, but you're obviously fairly fearless about it.
Yeah, obviously just try to play my game, do the things I can to help provide for this team, and thankfully that went in. It was a great face-off play by Jarvie there, just got it to me, and I had, just that one guy to beat, and then the goalie. So, that felt good. Obviously, like you said, I was definitely snake bitten for a while there, and to get these are nice, but hopefully just keep on going.
With the world watching this game because of Ovechkin, you guys put on a show with the NHL commissioner in town and everyone watching this game. How does it feel to have 2 goals in a game like this with the world watching?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that team, like I said earlier, they're so good, one of the best in the league, and I mean, the score was 5-1 or whatever, but it was a pretty back and forth game. We just capitalized on our chances and stuff, but yeah, I mean, we know Ovechkin, especially I grew up watching him, and that one timer he had tonight, I don't know how you defend that, honestly. And that was definitely a huge win for us. Clinched a spot in the playoffs, and hopefully just keep going, building momentum down the stretch. So.
We talked a lot about your transition to the NHL, the little hurdles you had to step over, the things that are different. Is this the last one? There's no fighting in college hockey, so or do you have to get a fight of your own for it to be?
No, college. Yeah, we wear the mask, so that kind of prevents it a little bit. Obviously, we still have a lot of competitive games like this and stuff like that. But, yeah, no, I definitely haven't been in something like this yet this year. Obviously, there's been some fights and stuff, but, I mean, I couldn't even keep track of. I knew every 5 seconds it felt like someone was getting in a fight or something was going on. So, it was a cool and fun experience to play. It kind of feels like playoff hockey a little bit. Obviously, I haven't played, but I've watched it, and I'm sure that's what it's like. So,
were you guys motivated to send a message to the Caps tonight with so much attention on them and Ovi and their standings where they are right now?
I think we were just focused on our team tonight. Obviously, we knew it was going to be a hard-fought game. Like I said, they're one of the best teams in the league for a reason, and we played our game tonight. We played a full 60 tonight, not a lot of mistakes tonight, and we were capitalizing on our chances. So it was a really fun game, and hopefully we can keep that going.
Big thank you to Jackson Blake and the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, for that. And Yeah, you definitely hear it in his voice too. It's like he was definitely excited to, go out there, score 2 goals against the Capitals to help clinch a playoff spot. Of course, one of them being a power play, and getting his thoughts on where he's feeling pretty good about himself. He was on a pretty long goalless streak. I think it was 22 games at the time to get off the schneid like that, go and pop 2 win, which helped lead to the 5-1 win, is absolutely amazing, especially with all eyes on the Caps, with Ovi and his chase, and for the fact that the Hurricanes are able to go do that on, national TV with TNT and True and Max, and even on the local stuff too, the regional stuff as well. This was definitely a playoff-like atmosphere game already when there was like 9 games left at the time, and to go and make a win like that was really amazing. And they asked him, were you trying to send a statement to the Capitals and to the NHL like, hey, while Ovi is on this chase, don't overlook the Carolina Hurricanes and they're getting hot at the right time. And for being a rookie in 21, he said it perfectly. It's like, no, we're just focusing on our game. It doesn't really matter who it's against. It's just, going out there, you wanted to clinch a playoff spot, you did. And now your next goal is to, lock up the 2 seed in the Metro, which they, for all intents and purposes, pretty much already have a lockdown for the most part. It's just not official yet, but I have a good feeling they're going to do that. And also now they're looking to lock down the 2 seed in the East, because that would be a great advantage for the playoffs, to where outside of the Capitals, you'd carry home ice all the way to the Eastern Conference Final. And depending on how it goes in the West, you could put yourself in a good spot too, where let's say one of the lower seeds make it out of the West, then the Hurricanes will have home ice advantage for the Stanley Cup Final. But of course, that's long ways away. Who knows how that plays out? But even then, you still want to give yourself the opportunity to lock up a higher seed in the playoffs on the Eastern Conference, and even try to get ahead of some of the Western Conference teams. Dallas and Winnipeg, maybe, but Vegas is still definitely in play for sure. So if you can leapfrog them, you would be the 4th best team in the NHL going into the playoffs, and you would still be the 2nd best team in the East, because while they did beat Washington, still a little bit of an uphill climb to catch them for the Metro spot. But at this point, divisions are divisions. The Hurricanes have won them enough. We all know what the main end goal is, and that's to win the Stanley Cup. So right now, all eyes are just going to go win the 2nd seed in the East. And definitely heard a lot of questions too about all the fighting, and it was funny how Blaker's like, I've never really been in a game like that before, where you see just every 5 seconds there's a multitude of fights, and you never really fought in college, because it's not kind of really it's pretty much frowned upon to do a lot of fighting in the NCAA. So for him to not really being used to that type of atmosphere, but now being in that, it's like, it's good that the guys stuck up for each other. It was definitely a wild game when you look at the bench, and almost like half the roster it's already in the locker room, because everyone's just getting misconducts and getting tossed left and right. But it's good to you get that perspective from Seth Jarvis, who's now, we heard from on Wednesday for the Thursday show following the win of, he's now been in the playoffs 4 straight years in his career, starting with the Carolina Hurricanes. And now Jackson Blake is 1-for-1 in his career. So it's interesting to get that perspective of a guy who's been here for a little while in Jarvis, but now you have the rookie and Blake getting his thoughts on a game like this to get ready. It's a playoff-like atmosphere with like less than 10 games left, and there's still games to play before you go into the actual playoffs, where it gets more intense and more electric when that comes around. So we're definitely excited when we finally do get to the playoffs and all that. But can't overlook what's coming up next, because like I said, the Hurricanes do a 4-game road trip that does include Buffalo and Washington next week. But before we get to that, we do have a back-to-back on Friday against the Detroit Red Wings and on Saturday against the Boston Bruins. But guys, that will do a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Podcast, bringing you the daily league white stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, and I do have link trees on both of my bios. Times.com. Maybe you want to check out my baseball stuff. It is at coveringthecorner.com. at SB Nation talking about the Cleveland Guardians. Well, if you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Surgecast and all other platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, and enjoy watching your Carolina Hurricanes play Detroit on Friday night and the Boston Bruins on Saturday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.